Hello, I'm NateFNGreat, and welcome to the Game Changer Podcast. I remember it, so you don't have to. Wait, that's the wrong show and the wrong person. My apologies, Nostalgia Critic. Sorry, not sorry. So, one of the things a lot of people have been looking forward to, and by all means has been a huge success, has been Disney+. It is the streaming service that we definitely thought it would be. It would have the classic movies, modern movies, TV series, stuff like that would just really draw people into this new deal. In all honesty, it's been a really fun ride. You got to see some classic movies. For me, I got the chance to see Flight of the Navigator. I saw bits and pieces of it when I was a kid. Never saw it really in its entirety until recently, and I actually loved it. It's one of those few times that I thought that Sarah Jessica Parker looked absolutely gorgeous. It was one of those moments where I was like, wow, she was really beautiful when she was young. Got to see the new Lady and the Tramp, which was utter trash. Yeah, that's probably going to be something for a completely different deal. I got to see a couple of series here and there, including classic cartoons that still hold up to this day. They still do a great job. It's just a lot of fun. And recently I watched a couple of Christmas episodes, which I'll be going into more in December. But to close off November, I thought it would be kind of cool to talk about one series, one set of movies in particular that have definitely stood out to me and has actually stood the test of time, even after so many years. And it is the Jim Henson Muppet movies. These have been just absolutely really great movies. It features songs, it features a little bit of action, some romance, some guest appearances. It's literally one of those series of movies that just does a great job. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about the majority of these movies, as well as talk about the new modern ones that have come out recently, and kind of compare them just a little bit. So, before I can even go right into that, let's talk about the original. We start off with the original Muppet movie, released in 1979. This was a movie that basically took the Muppet show that they had in the olden days and they just put it on the big screen. And in all honesty, it's a pretty damn good movie. It still holds up. The movie basically is talking about how the Muppets came together and how they were able to get into their Hollywood deal. Along the way, we see Kermit the Frog meeting up with, Fozzie, Gonzo, Miss Piggy, Electric Mayhem, all of these great characters. And it's kind of one of those things that it's a really fun-filled, story going on. It's a fun-filled story through and through. And to be quite honest, it just continues to get better and better. Now, one of the things that the Muppet movies have been very notorious for bringing into these movies are the guest appearances. And people can kind of fight me on that, but it actually is kind of one of those things that I've really been known for. In this one, it actually has a lot of really great... It has a lot of really great deals. Dom DeLuise is the first cameo we see on there. He's just an agent getting through the swamps. He's trying to find his way out of there. And it's fun. It's just fun seeing him do that. You see people like Carol Kane, who has probably by far one of the funniest jokes, honestly, in the entire movie, where every single time Kermit talks about a myth, he keeps saying that, and then she just pops up and says yes, as if he was saying miss. It's just absolutely so funny. And to be honest, even the literal humor is what makes it even funnier. You have Kermit basically getting away from this guy who wants to have him promote his frog leg restaurant, and it turns into this action-packed deal where they're chasing after these frogs. They're trying to kidnap them, and it ends with them wanting to do the whole frog killer deal, which, oh my god, for a family movie, that's pretty dark to escalate from, if I can't, I'll pay him off, then I'll do something. It's just absolutely insane what they do here. From that, the first time they speed off away from him, Doc just goes to his henchman Max, follow that frog. Max just speeds right off. And it's just one of those moments where it's like, this is like Three Stooges stuff, and it's funny. I absolutely loved it. Some other people that were involved in this were Bob Hope, Steve Martin. Oh my gosh, Mel Brooks was in this movie, and I was just absolutely my heart was flickering. It was just absolutely beautiful. And you kind of see a little bit of how the relationship with Miss Piggy and Kermit kind of starts. And throughout these movies, you kind of do notice their relationship kind of going through some ups and downs where they were broken up and then they got back together. Not as dramatic as the Muppet series that they had on ABC, but that's a different story for a different time. But the first Muppet movie does a great job of creating a very colorful movie that is just fun for the whole family. Some people will enjoy, the classic jokes. They'll enjoy the cameos. They will enjoy seeing these classic Muppets just do an absolutely tremendous job of creating a movie. It's absolutely great. It's just absolutely fun. Then we go from that to The Great Muppet Caper, released in 1981. So this was more of a mystery musical comedy film, as what people have been calling it as. And it definitely gets a little more darker when you kind of look at it, because you still have the Muppets, but this time around, Fozzie and Kermit, they're playing two reporters, and Gonzo's their photographer. They have another deal in which they end up going after this woman because she's the biggest thing in headlines right now, talking to this woman, Lady Holiday, played by Diana Rigg, who has her jewels stolen. And it's really kind of one of those things where it involves a bit of a mix-up, because instead of getting Lady Holiday, Kermit ends up finding Miss Piggy. Imagine that. It's one of those things where it's fun. It's another really great movie that just gives out a little more of the action, the adventure, also a bit of the comedy, and some pretty good songs. Not as good as the first one, but the person who really kind of ties it in here, as much as you could continue talking about the cameos, John Cleese is involved in this. Oh my gosh, when I saw John Cleese, I was literally thinking this is going to be absolutely hilarious. And he is. He's absolutely just fantastically funny. It was one of the things where it's like he's the Legend of Monty Python, and he still does a tremendous job. Jim Henson and Frank Oz make appearances in this movie, and Jerry Nelson, who voices a good majority of the Muppets. Jerry Nelson, who plays Floyd Pepper, Pops, Lou Zealand, and Louis Kaiser. He is involved in this too, so it's kind of really cool to see that they not only have all of these great actors involved in this, but they also involve some of the people there. But getting back to what I was saying before, the real star of this entire show, other than the Muppets, was Charles Gordon. Oh my lord. I mean, this guy, we knew that he was going to be a star. It wasn't until long after that he would start doing his deal with the Beethoven franchise. Actually, it was about maybe 10 years that we would see him do this great comedy gold with a St. Bernard, because why not at this point? It is just absolutely, again, it's comical, it's breathtaking. It's definitely one of those great movies that, again, showcases the Muppets really creating another fantastic movie. Not as best as the first one, I think a lot of people. I think that this one is one of my favorites. Probably not my absolute favorite, but it still does a really good job when you really look at it. Next movie that will kind of come up on here is a movie that I think is kind of a dark horse in this whole entire film deal, but there's still some good parts about it. That being the Muppet Christmas Carol. For a lot of people that are probably guessing, yes, it is a movie that is more focused on the Christmas Carol deal. They're just adding the Muppets into it. But again, they do a great job of bringing in some of these different characters, some of these different, I wouldn't say characters, bringing in a lot of these different faces. Of course, they have, Miss Piggy and Kermit as, Mr. and Mrs. Mr. and Mrs. Cratchit. Probably one of the first movies where it doesn't feature them either breaking up or just separating or anything like that. So it was kind of nice to see that, even though in the second one I kind of started slowly seeing, okay, Kermit's way too forgiving when it comes to Miss Piggy. But when it comes to this one, it's one of those things like, well, they kind of work off each other. It works out pretty nicely. The main character in here, Michael Caine, as Ebenezer Scrooge. Some people thought he did a funny job at it. Some people thought he did a fine job at it. I thought he did pretty good. It was one of those shows where I'll still watch it during, Christmas time. It's one of the ones that kind of stood out to me when I think of a, Christmas Carol done well. And one of the reasons why it's done so well is more likely because, again, you bring in the music, you bring in the color, you bring in the great casting. The main thing that I think really kind of gets me is indeed the music, especially when you go into the Ghost of Christmas Future. Oh my lord, that is one of the most terrifying things I will ever see. And some people might say that I'm a bit of a wuss for saying that, but you just listen to that ominous, music, and you just know that it's just going to be a dark and really sadistic kind of deal. It's so well done. In all honesty, I think it's done by like the lower brass. I think it's done by tubas and trombones, stuff like that. It's done so well. And the way that they created the Ghost of Christmas Future, he's just in rags. His face, you can't even see it. All he does is he nods or he shakes his head or he points. It's just it's one of those things where, again, Muppets do a fantastic job of that. It's fun. It's just absolutely well done. I absolutely liked it. And, having, Gonzo narrating along with Rizzo is kind of an interesting pace, because usually the focus is on either Kermit or Fozzie, because you're usually the ones that are, the stars of the show. But this time around, it kind of focuses more on Gonzo and Rizzo, who turn out to be one of the best comedic duos that you could ever want. It's just absolutely great to see that. Oh, man. We got to go into another one, which is Muppet Treasure Island. This, by far, is probably my favorite Muppet movie to date. And it's just a very well interpreted movie of course, the classic of Treasure Island. You have so many, colorful moments, but you also have a lot of dark moments in there where we see, a lot of times when we see the pirates, we see them doing, torture apparatuses. There are some points where they talk about walking the plank, or they talk about basically wanting to kill. It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, this is new. This was not exactly what I was expecting. Now, obviously, in the box office, a lot of people don't exactly. Some people might say, like, well, it wasn't really a box office hit. Yeah, well, it didn't really have to be, in my opinion. And to be honest, a lot of the characters that were involved in this, I think there's only like 4 main cast members that were involved in this. The rest are just the Muppets. You have Billy Connolly playing Billy Bones, who honestly is one of the best ways that you could start off that movie. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he may have been. I think that this is a guy who. Oh wow, yeah, he was in the Lemmy Snicket's Series of Unfortunate Event movie that took place. I think he was also in that one movie. I want to just double check that right now, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was in. Yep, he was in Garfield: A Tale of Two Kitties. I kind of had a feeling that was the case. Why did I do that? Like I said, he does a fantastic job of creating that moment. Then you go from that to Jennifer Saunders, who plays this kind of who plays a woman who owns this mill, and she has these moments where she just has some perfect comedic timing where she can say these random things at the perfect time where they're just saying. I think the best example was Jim, Gonzo, and Rizzo. They're basically talking about how, hey, we're going to go on adventures, and they're talking about, to the northwest is, this area, to the southeast is this area. And you hear Jennifer just saying, to the southwest, no dirty dishes. And they just have this running gag of, how does she do that? It's another one of those funny jokes that just stands out to me. It's great. Kevin Bishop, who plays Jim Hawkins, I'm not gonna lie, I literally look at this kid and I think to myself, we got done watching the recent Terminator movie, and we thought that maybe Kevin was this person. So no disrespect to Kevin, but it was just kind of one of those things where, he definitely could hit some of the higher notes, but he also had the look that just looked like he was that Terminator from the Terminator movies. But to me, the creme de la creme, the cherry on the top of this sundae of a movie was, you guessed it, Long John Silver, played by the one and only Tim Curry. If there was ever a person that could play this dastardly person and could have, just this maniacal deal, and to be honest, people already knew that he was going to be the villain, so it was kind of like, let's just have the funniest person in the world play this villain, and Tim Curry did it. He had so many moments where he's doing his classic laugh of the ha 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 ha. I can't do it to Tim Curry laugh. I apologize, Tim Curry. I mean no disrespect. He delivers the kind of performance that only Tim Curry can perform. It's just absolutely fun. It's a great movie, and it's definitely something that a lot of people will always have just a great time. It's just absolutely fantastically done. One more movie before I even get into talking about the recent Muppet movies. One that I got a chance to see was The Muppet Wizard of Oz. So this was a movie that I was kind of interested in seeing, and they definitely did try to add a little more Muppet feel to it. They have, Ashanti playing Dorothy, Queen Latifah playing Auntie Em, David Al Greer playing Uncle Henry. They have, Piggy playing the Four Witches. You have Kermit playing the Scarecrow, Gonzo the Tin Man, Fozzie the Lion. You had the new introduction, in my opinion, the first time really getting you introduced to the new character of Pepe. I think his name was I can't remember exactly who he was. Maybe I'm just looking at nope, that was not him. But yeah, Pepe was playing the role of Toto, which is a bit of an interesting choice, but in all honesty, I kind of like how they just call that right out of the... they kind of just say right out of the back. They're just like, well, we can't... You wouldn't let me get a dog, so I had to grab, Pepe for this one. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, that's kind of funny, because she couldn't get a dog, so they had to settle for like a shrimp or something like that. I think that was what was going on. But again, it's fun. This movie, to be honest, it's one of those things where it's okay. Some of the people that were involved in this, Jeffrey Tambor was playing the Wizard of Oz. Quentin Tarantino apparently had a role in the extended version, but I think now I remember. So I guess Quentin Tarantino was talking about these ideas that they had for how the Wicked Witch dies. It's just one of those things that it's funny. It's one of those things that it's great. Even Kelly Osbourne makes a random appearance in this movie. Why? I don't know. She kind of just appears, and then she's just like, whatever, and just leaves. It's one of those things where it was just like a brief flash. It's interesting. To be honest, is it really good? I think you kind of see where this is going. You have to remember that there were a lot of franchises that thought that they could get away with this. I mean, Tom and Jerry did a Wizard of Oz, for goodness sakes. I mean, it was very entertaining, but it was still one of those things where like these two just do not mix up at all. And I do give them props for, trying to create something. They tried, doing something interesting for this, but it was one of those things where it was like, it's okay. It wasn't one of those things where I'm just going to be like, oh man, this is great. It's like, it was kind of there. It happens. It's whatever. Alright, so now we go into the modernized version of the Muppets, and this is, of course, the Disney version of the Muppets. Ever since they bought them in 2004, they were trying to get their rights, and then they decided, let's just do a bit of a reboot for them. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of this movie, but I definitely can look at it and see that they are definitely trying to modernize it a little bit. The story basically focuses on Walter as well as his brother Gary, who have been Muppets fans for so long, so much to the point that Walter wants to become a Muppet. So he kind of gets involved with the Beautiful Romantic Weekend that Gary and Mary, played by Jason Segel and Amy Adams, were involved with. And it's one of those things where it's a very unique romance, and also, to be honest, I kind of like their chemistry together. It's kind of one of those things where they kind of mishmash just a little bit, but it kind of feels like the Amy and Jim of movies. They're just kind of they're kind of a cute couple, but you kind of don't understand why you like them. It's kind of funny, and to be honest, it's also featuring a lot of really fun, people involved in this. You had Risha Jones, who played a network executive. You had Jack Black and Zach Galifianakis, who of course added their own, crazy sense of humor. With Jack Black, oh my gosh, with Jack Black, it's also just amazing. Kristen Schaal, who just absolutely can kill it. Donald Glover was involved in this, and I was not expecting that whatsoever. I was like, is that who I think it is? It is. Okay, okay. Lando Calrissian is in this movie. This is kind of amazing. He even had Sarah Silverman involved in this. The cameos are just so bizarre and out there, but at the same time, they're kind of interesting. You have Emily Blunt, who gets involved in this. Had John Krasinski, Neil Patrick Harris. Oh my gosh, you had Mickey Rooney. Oh, when I saw him pop up, I was just so happy. It was one of those things like, I love Mickey Rooney. He's amazing. You had, oh my gosh, who's the name of the guy? Jim Parsons. Okay. Yeah, when I saw him, I immediately thought, yep, they have The Big Bang Theory in here. They're trying to modernize it. And it's kind of one of those movies where it is more along the lines of a musical. But getting back to kind of the story. So basically, they go to Muppet Studio. They find out that this man, Tex Richmond, wants to tear down Muppet Studios and turn it and go digging for oil that's underneath it. There's really no proof that there was any oil behind it. But you know something? It's one of those movies where it does fit kind of the Muppet deal. It's like some of these things you just don't need to have like a full-on explanation for it. It just happens. Chris Cooper, who plays Tex, by the way, does a great job, and he's just absolutely funny. It's great. So basically, Walter gets this idea that they need to get the Muppets together to ban everything there. So they talk to Kermit, they get Fozzie, they get all the characters involved in this for this telethon deal, and it's a fun little deal where they try to relive the glory days. They're trying to bring in all these great things, and to be honest, it is kind of one of those things where they're trying to introduce the kind of love that they had back in the olden days. And to be honest, it did a great job in the box office. About $165 million in the box office on a $45 million budget. That's not bad. That's really kind of great. Like I said, a lot of cameos. I think a lot of these cameos were just kind of like, oh, these people are kind of there instead of being kind of a part of the story. I think it's just kind of one of those things where like, oh man, you're going to see Neil Patrick Harris in this. You're going to see John Krasinski in this. You're going to see, this person, this person. You're going to see a lot of these names involved in this. And to be honest, it's kind of interesting. And honestly, I'm also looking at this. There were a lot of people that were featured in scenes that were removed from the final cut of this film. And I'm looking at the names. I'm looking at this, seeing Rob Cordy, Billy Crystal, Ricky Gervais, who would be featured actually in the second Muppet movie. You have Kathy Griffin, Sarah Hyland, Sterling Knight, Wanda Sykes, Danny Trejo. They had scenes in here that got cut for the movie, but Cordry, Gervais, and Trejo would actually appear in the next movie, which is Muppets Most Wanted, which I'll get into in just a bit. So for me, I didn't like it because it definitely did seem like they were trying to modernize it, but at the same time, it's one of those things where I don't absolutely hate it because it does feature them trying to modernize it. They're trying to realize that, hey, the Muppets are not as popular as they were before, so we need to find a way to, bring them back to that popularity, bring them back to kind of like this promised land, just have a great time. And to be honest, a lot of the stuff that they did was either kind of childish or it just fit. It was kind of one of those things where even when you're watching it, there's so many points where I'm just like, whether you're a kid or an adult, you can't not appreciate a good fart joke. And I mean, Fozzie doing, fart shoes, which is basically shoes with whoopee cushions at the bottom. It's funny. It's one of those things where I'm not even going to hate that. That's great. It's a movie where, like I said, it does its job. It does find a way to bring people involved, and it definitely earned a major profit, so I can't really hate on that. So the final movie here that I got a chance to watch was the Muppets Most Wanted movie that was actually released in 2014. So this was, it's dubbed a musical crime comedy film, which features the Muppets going overseas to perform for many different countries, and they're also quote unquote on the run with a famous devious frog known as Constantine, who looks exactly like Kermit, even though his accent kind of gives it away. So there's a moment where Constantine and Kermit switch places. Kermit switched as Constantine. Constantine is Kermit. And right off the bat, there's so many moments where it was like, yeah, this should not happen too much. But in all honesty, the start of the movie was a lot of fun because it was literally a moment where it was like, hey, we're starting where the last movie ended. In all honesty, Jason Segel and Amy Adams, we don't know if they were actually there. All we saw was just the backs of them, and that was kind of it. But it features a wonderful cast, including Ricky Gervais, who is always absolutely funny. I've loved a lot of his movies that I've seen him in, including Night at the Museum. He definitely has that kind of person. When you see him behind the scenes, he definitely is one of the most bubbly people you'll probably ever meet. It's really fun. Ty Burrell, who, in all honesty, I love him pairing with Sam the Eagle in that, and I'll tell you why in just a minute, as well as Tina Fey. Tina Fey, I think she's always funny. There's really not too many movies where I could say that she did a horrible job. It's Tina Fey. So, Ricky Gervais is teaming up with Constantine, and he's they're trying to do this deal where they are trying to get the crown jewels of London, which in all honesty is a pretty big heist. But they have this little crazy wonky deal where they're just traveling around the world finding out ways to crack the case. They have to find this key that opens up this locket that will help them get into the deal. It's really weird. I think that's the one thing I don't like about this movie is the fact that kind of gets everywhere. While they're on the run, though, they're being pursued by Sam the Eagle as well as Jean-Pierre Napoleon, played by Ty Berlin, who, oh my god, he is absolutely hilarious. There's so many moments where they just work off each other so well. The first joke that they have is them comparing badge sizes. How can you hate that kind of a joke? It's one of those things where it goes from like these tiny little badges to this giant badge that got brought in by James McAvoy. Oh my god, James McAvoy's in this movie, and I absolutely loved it. You have another great set of people that were involved in this. Tony Bennett is involved in this. That's absolutely amazing. Rob Corddry is back on this after being cut from the first movie. Zach Galifianakis playing Hobo Joe again. That was just absolutely funny. Selma Hayek gets involved in this. Tom Hiddleston low-key gets involved in this movie. Why? I don't know, but in all honesty, it's fine. James McAvoy, like I said, he plays a UPS guy. He just gets involved in there for no reason other than just being there. Chloe Grace Moretz, a lot of people have seen her in great movies like Carrie, as well as I think she was involved in the sequel to to Bad Neighbors or something like that, or was it like Neighbor? I can't remember what that movie was anymore. And for me, I can't believe that I missed this, but Swoggle is put in this movie. How did I miss Swoggle of all people in this movie? If this, I'm hoping that when I do get the chance to interview Swoggle, I want to bring this up. I want to say, was this from when the Muppets were brought? Well, it either was like Muppets Most Wanted when he was about. I'll have to look this up. I can't remember anymore. But there has to be a situation where it was like they had to bring Swoggle on this. It's just funny. But yeah, story basically them trying to get on there, and we see Kermit get locked into the Gulag, which is like a high security prison deal, in which is run by Tina Fey. Excuse me, who has also a bit of a crush on Kermit, and honestly is one of the funniest things about this is the fact that she can be this serious actress, but there's so many moments where I'm literally kind of just chuckling at either her too seriousness or the fact that she was just doing these comedic moments that worked. Like she said, where she says to Kermit, too bad, lights out, somebody turns out the lights, you hear and she just goes, turn back the lights on. It is a figure of speech. Just that was meant for the frog, not for you, idiots. All I'm thinking to myself is, okay, that's great. That's funny. It's one of those movies where it still has some great humor, but it's one of those movies that I think it's not one of my favorites. It really isn't. I understand that there's people that probably enjoy it. Help, 79% on Rotten Tomatoes for this movie. That's still pretty good. This, in all honesty, I don't know if this is the lowest one. I'll have to look this up later on. But when I look at this, it's one of those movies where, the storyline kind of gets a little hard to follow sometimes. Walter, who was kind of like the main focus for the first Muppet incarnation, was kind of the backseat in this movie. I thought that they would have probably given him a bit of more of a bigger role, other than the fact that he knew that the frog was not something that was there, but was not all right. But it is what it is. But in all honesty, it's still a good movie to kind of enjoy. You'll get a little bit of a chuckle at a couple of things. I think the cameos again are very interesting. One of the guys that I saw from Wild Hogs was in there, and I thought that was funny. I thought that was great. Absolutely loved it. So mainly I think it's the cameos and just some certain spots in there that I enjoyed. The story kind of goes all over the place. There's certain jokes that are just kind of there, and it's like, well, that's interesting. There's even some cameos that are probably just like, this is kind of weird. But if I take one thing away from it, it is indeed Ty Burrell and Sam the Eagle. That is the best part of the movie. Whether they're working together or whether they are just kind of having wits end at each other, it doesn't matter. It's just absolutely funny. So those are kind of like the reviews for the majority of the Muppet movies. I know I missed two, which were Muppets Take Manhattan as well as Muppets from Space. Those two I want to watch, but I'm kind of basing this more on the movies that I've seen. In all honesty, the Muppets still are really funny and really relevant after all is said and done. I mean, granted, some of the literal humor could probably be hit and miss, and there's some things that are just really obvious, but at the same time, you look at this and it's something that is for the family to enjoy. Whether they're watching the classic movies or the modern day movies, there's still enough there to get people hooked together and enjoy this movie. And there's some people that'll probably just not really enjoy it as much as they'll just probably nitpick at it all over. But in all honesty, like I said, it's definitely a great deal. And in all honesty, I think they're doing the Muppets right, in all honesty. I think they probably could have done without the Muppets ABC series, because that was just kind of like The Office, sort of, kind of. It was weird. It was one of those things where it had moments where it was funny, but there was other moments where it was like, this is what's happening, right? Okay. But yeah, in all honesty, Muppets are still really cool. In all honesty, they're still a lot of fun to watch. They're a lot of fun to really engage in. And it's just absolutely amazing just seeing how these absolutely fun little, puppets can revolutionize an era. I mean, you look at so many other things nowadays. You look at some of the comedic things nowadays. The reason why they really fail is because they don't really connect with the audience. They're just kind of there. We're like, oh, well, this person's funny. Let's put them in a funny situation. I'm getting sick and tired of seeing Melissa McCarthy in almost every single comedic movie because it's like, we've seen her already. We've seen her do these kind of things already. I think that's one of the reasons why I respect the fact she's doing more serious roles now, because it's one of those things that it's a bit of a challenge for her because they have to now separate that comedic side that she's had from the serious role that she's now working on. It's really cool to kind of see that. With the Muppets, I don't really see them being too serious, but at the same time, they are able to create fun moments as well as serious moments. You look at so many of these great deals. Like I said, first movie, you have literally a dark moment where they're just saying, yeah, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill Kermit the Frog. Say, what? Second movie, you literally had Charles Gordon. He literally has a gun in this movie. It's like, is he really going to shoot one of the Muppets? You just never know. We'll never find out now. But it mixes so many great things, and it does a fantastic job of creating so many great memories. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about movies like The Muppets, as well as Follow That Bird. I've not got a chance to see that movie in quite a while, but it's time for me to break that streak because it's an absolutely great movie. I will see that hopefully in the near future. But with that being said, Muppets, really great set of movies. Some of them can be hit and miss, but all in all, they do leave an impact on you. And they definitely do create a great memory that everybody of all generations can definitely enjoy. I've been NateFNGreat. You've been listening to the Game Changer podcast. And hey, if you enjoy this podcast, be sure to give it a like. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought of the Muppets. What kind of impact did they leave on your life? Also, be sure to check out the Facebook fan page, facebook.com/ I think it's the Game Changer if I'm not mistaken. We also have so many great things coming up in the future, wrestling related. Of course, I mentioned them on the podcast that I usually post on Sundays with Mr. Fretz. You can definitely check him out at LegendaryJF on Twitter, as well as check out his Fretzlemania podcast. You can also follow me on Twitter at RealFNGame, as well as just enjoy all of these podcasts that are on so many great podcasting formats like Spotify, like iHeartRadio, like YouTube, just anywhere and everywhere. Just come and enjoy the fun. So I've been NateFNGreat. I'm looking to make change one day at a time. Time to make a difference. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.